All right, you know what it is. This is the Big Douglas Show. Welcome to another Preview Friday edition. We'll take you inside the command center with my big good buddy Chris Russell. Chris, how are you today?
What's up, Doug? How are you, pal?
Well, as good as one can be when they root for the team that we root for. I know we'll get into all of it, Chris, but before we do, and more congressional hearings, it sounds like maybe there'll be something newsworthy soon. We have had this conversation too many times for guys that just want to be able to talk football. Does this move the needle for you? Will we get anything? I still think that the owners would have to vote him out. He'll never sell the team on his own accord, right? I mean, where do you think we're at? What do you think we'll find out here the next couple of days?
Yeah, in terms of selling the team on his own, that's still very highly unlikely. I do think the more pressure and leaks and stories from other owners that we've seen in USA Today over the last couple of months and just recently in the Washington Post, Doug, I do think that matters. I do think that helps. I do think that means something. And I do think they're now fighting with fire. I mean, the whole Jerry, Dan picture, listen, for years, anybody that's listened to me, I don't know if anybody cares. I've tried to tell everybody Dan Snyder is protected by Jerry Jones because they're best friends. I've said that for years and years and years and years and years and years and years. They are not just friends. They are really tight. And Jerry's got more power than Roger Goodell, and Jerry's got more power than just about, if not every single owner in the NFL. So if you're going against Dan, you're also going against Jerry. Be careful. Be careful about what you get out on public record. Now, if you can hide in anonymity in the woods somewhere, maybe you can figure that out. Don't use my name if you're Jerry Lurie, if you're, the Maras, whoever it might be, right? And I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying you better not get on Jerry's bad side because life can become hell if you get on Jerry's bad side by trying to kick Dan out. And that, I think, is the ultimate thing that will prevent a vote, that will prevent Dan being ultimately removed forcibly from the league. The only option that I see as viable is, again, so much public pressure and scrutiny that Dan and Tanya, eventually just decide, look, this, this sucks.
Because
Not
it
fun
can't be
anymore.
fun. It can't be
Uh,
fun for Dan right now, right? I mean, making money's fun, but he's not living
right.
the life of an NFL owner right
Right.
now.
Right. I mean, you wouldn't think, right? I mean, he is to a large degree. I mean, look, when you have Lady S and you can travel all over the world and IMAX theaters and this, that, and the other thing, and as horse, as your franchise has been for 25 years, Doug, he's still making, he's still clearing, I think, like, I don't know, the last time I saw it, maybe a net of like $50 million a year, right? After everything's paid, after all of everything. So,
Yes.
well, look, it's not bad to be Dan, even with all of this. And, they can say it's unfair, it's a witch hunt, whatever. I mean, I listened to the lawyer for Dan, I read the 9-page letter. They are crying about being unfairly treated and what have you and attacked and you don't want to talk to this guy and you don't want to talk to that guy. Listen, Congress, I'm not saying that they're not grandstand. I'm not saying that they're not trying to use this as a platform. They are. I don't hide from that. They are. You know what they're trying to use it for, Doug? They're trying to use it to help bring to 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 maybe bring down Dan Snyder to his knees, and we'll see what happens from there. B, they're trying to use the platform that Dan Snyder, the Commanders, and the NFL provides to send a very loud and clear message to Fortune 500 CEOs, to little companies, local and national, that you can't treat your employees like beep, and you
Yeah.
can't use power and ego and sexual deviance, if you will, to some degree, in some sort. You cannot do what this organization, this owner, and these people and executives, former executives, what have you, are accused of doing. That's what this is about. It's not just a witch hunt against Dan. It really isn't. I truly believe that. But to some degree, of course, Congress is grandstanding. That's what politicians do. They grandstand on everything.
Right.
And the Republicans are doing the same thing, in support of Dan or against the House Oversight Committee. And Tom Davis, the lawyer that wrote the letter and the former congressman, that's the definition of grandstanding. Because you know what they did? They basically said, don't look over here. Dan did nothing wrong. Dan's good. Dan's changed. Dan's a perfect individual. Not that they said that, but Dan's a noble human being. He recognized what's wrong. He and T have changed everything. And then they said, that guy, the guy that is responsible for all of this is Bruce Allen. That's what they did in that letter.
Right. Was it a kick in the pants to see Dan in Dallas with Dallas blue on? I mean, I know such a frivolity, but there is Tanya head to toe in burgundy, Jason Wright with gear on, right. and Dan's got a blue blazer on, and he can't be an idiot. So it had to have been on purpose, and I just don't get it.
Listen, I mean, I don't know if it was on purpose. Nothing would surprise me at this point. I mean, I guess I would only counter, well, then why was he wearing like the tan or whatever khakis, right? Like, I mean, if you're going to go for the full ensemble, then like as a show of unity and support with Jerry Jones, wear the navy blue slacks or whatever. Look, I don't know. Here's what I do know. Again, for the Commanders' social media team to put that out there, right? And I'm sure they were instructed to do that, to put that out there and to label it as 24 years in the making, friends and rivals. Yeah. It reeks of tone deafness of what their consumers want to see and need to see and are feeling. They do not want to, like, I've been screaming about Jerry and Dan forever. Nobody wants to hear or see pictures of them playing tonsil hockey at midfield. Nobody wants to see it.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Like, you can be friends all you want. Have cocktails. Have the best scotch in the world at owners' meetings and at league meetings. Have it at Jerry's house Saturday night. Have it for breakfast that morning. Have it at dinner that night. You control everything. You did not have to do this. Nobody in your fan base wants to see this. Nobody.
Nobody. Chris, has Jason Wright done a good job in his post?
I think Jason
he gets a lot of love from the fan base, and I get it, and I understand it. He was trying something new.
I think Jason. I think Jason has done a good job in a lot of things. I think he has made some critical mistakes, or he and his staff have made some critical mistakes, which is to be expected when you look at the sheer magnitude of the job that he inherited. Nobody, myself, you, whoever, would be perfect in this job. No matter how intelligent you are, no matter how personal and friendly you are. I like Jason overall. I respect Jason. I've been told by many people around the league that, he was forced on the Snyders, right. That he is in way over his head. I've been told by people that no longer work there that, look, I take everything in, Doug, and I believe some of it. I take it in and put it in my mind, and I try and make my own independent evaluation, right? Jason has done some really good things for this organization. Jason represents a dramatic upgrade from Bruce Allen, the last man in his position. Jason was somewhat of a stabilizing force during a chaotic period of time. And we're not even talking about COVID and all that fallout. I'm just talking about name change, logo change, brand change, sexual assault, sexual misconduct accusations left and right, everything that could go wrong or against Jason or could be piled up was piled up against him. And did he do a great job? I think logic, common sense, and the jury would say great would be a stretch. Fine, good, above average, maybe a B minus, a C plus. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. If that means that he hasn't done a good job, well, I guess that's for everybody's interpretation. But I think he and his staff have made some critical mistakes. I also think they've done some really good things. And I think you have to kind of balance it out.
Chris Ron's been telling us year 3 was going to be the year that we, had to kind of wait for in his not rebuild. Let's start here first, though. And I recall when Ron got all the power, you and I had this conversation. I personally never find that a system without the checks and balances works very well. The NFL has shown you that they don't like it. I mean, I think only Bill Belichick has the kind of control that Ron Rivera currently has.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that the franchise had to give him that kind of control if they planned on getting him to come here. I understand it probably was hard to get some of the people that they might have wanted to come here. Mm-hmm. In the end, it all lies with Ron. One, are you a fan of Ron having all the personnel control, being the president of football ops and the head coach? Let's start there.
No, because it's been proven time and time again, outside of one example, Bill Belichick, that it almost never works. It almost never works. I mean, there's been so many cases, Mike Holmgren and like the best setup, quite honestly, is the one that, they've had in Pittsburgh, where you had longevity at head coach with a couple of different people, Mike Tomlin, Bill Cowher, what have you, but you always had a strong GM. Now, the key is to find two people that work together well and aren't just and that one of those two isn't just a yes man to the other, meaning the head coach doesn't always just say yes to the GM and get pushed over, and vice versa, which would probably be the situation here, where I think Martin Mayhew has a lot of input. I think Marty Herney has a lot of input.
Okay.
But Ron is where the buck stops. Mm-hmm. Ron makes the final decision. Ron makes Ron's opinion. Like if Ron stands up on the table in the conference room and says, guys, I want Carson Wentz, what do you think's going to happen? They're going to say, no, coach, you're wrong. We're going to go for, Mitch Trubisky. No, I mean, so I think it's really hard to find that perfect dynamic that we're all looking for, right? Ideally, where it has to come from, I think, Doug, you can disagree with this all you want. You know how Buffalo hired Sean McDermott first, mm-hmm. and then they hired Brandon Beane as their GM right after that. I think it was like a month or so after that. They came from the same organization. They worked together. Clearly, Sean McDermott was comfortable with Brandon Beane. Otherwise, Brandon Beane's not getting that job. But when you have two guys that have worked together before and that know how each other operates and the personalities and what have you, and maybe they come from the same organization, or maybe at one point in the recent past they had worked together in this common era of the NFL, that's the way you do it. Because to have basically guys that haven't worked together, or somebody that is perceived, and I know privately is thought to kind of like not be a big challenger of Ron, meaning Martin Mayhew, and even Marty Herney. I think when you have that, that dynamic is hard to achieve where you have a respectful, healthy dialogue of, no, coach, I don't think this is the right thing, whatever. And where I'm willing to say, no, I strongly believe in this. Let me show you why I strongly believe in this. And if you can achieve, again, head coach and Joe Shane and Brian Dable with the Giants now. Okay, that's the example that I'm talking about. Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane from Carolina to Buffalo. Again, I know Marty Herney worked with Ron in Carolina, But in that case, Marty Herney had the top say, and Ron had influence, but not the top say. Now it's reverse. And if we're to believe the public structure, if we're to believe that, Marty Herney's not even the GM.
Right.
You see where I'm coming from?
Well,
so it's kind of sort of the structure that I want, but it's not really the structure that I think
it's an imaginary structure right now. It looks right. And here's the problem, Chris. They are two so philosophically different positions. Like a GM's job is to set the franchise up for the future and to keep pieces around, but also be looking to the future. Head coach job win right now. Like he can't afford to be. And so those things together, if you're Ron, just never made sense to me. Are they philosophically, are their thoughts too old? Because that's the other thing the fan base says is they're antiquated. It doesn't work. Let's start here because I don't know that it's antiquated on the offense. I was a huge Scott Turner truther. And, I'm doing one of these numbers, you know what I mean? Like it's just slowly dropping because what we saw in the first quarter of the Jacksonville game is exactly what I thought this offense was going to be with two backs and motion and all kind of, guys in the slot and Terry McLaurin catching tunnel screens and the whole nine. We haven't seen any of it since.
Right.
Where are we first on Turner?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I don't think this staff, the game has passed them by. What I think I can say about this staff in general is that they have a lack of confidence and trust in the players that they have in a lot of cases. I truly believe that.
But they're Ron's guys, right? I mean, that's the wild player.
Yes. I mean, Ron has ultimately brought many of them in. There's no doubt. Which tells you that there's another problem that maybe they're not bringing in the right mix personalities, guys that can do what they're asking them to do, what have you. To your point, absolutely. I do not believe the game has passed them by. There's what I believe is what Scott is trying to do on offense. I'll speak to that. Is Scott is trying to say, look, I've got this quarterback with a big old freaking cannon on his shoulder. I want to get chunk yardage. I want to get big plays, and I can make up for some of the negative plays or the bad plays or the penalties or what have you by getting big chunk yardage. And somehow, some way, Doug, he's got to marry that philosophy of, okay, I get that you want to get big chunk yardage. Like you mentioned the Jacksonville game, right? With the over-the-top strike to Terry But what did they do on that first series that you're talking about? Like you said, all the motion, all the short stuff to Curtis Samuel where he was you have the ability, and I saw some of it in Dallas last week with a much more improved emphasis on the running game and a slip screen, or I don't know if it was slip screen, tunnel screen, whatever you want to call it, screen to Terry on the first drive. I saw some of that. But what they weren't able to do was sustain it even with the good running game. And some of that was because of big chunk yardage off the running game. They weren't able to sustain it on every drive or on a lot of drives because of the self-inflicted mistakes. So clearly, one thing has to happen. Look, they cannot kill themselves the way they normally kill themselves, whether that's sacks, intentional groundings, holding penalties, false starts, whatever it might be. They cannot put themselves in 3rd and 27, 3rd and 27, 4th and 15. No offense is built to overcome that consistently. None. Okay. So when people say, well, the game has passed these guys by. First of all, I don't think the game has passed Scott Turner by. I just think he's struggling to find the right marriage, the right mix of wanting chunk yardage, wanting big plays, wanting to take advantage of a quarterback with a howitzer of an arm, and what is most effective and how to get it done against different opponents. Like this week, okay? Now, they were able to run the ball against Dallas. I don't know about you, Doug. I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very effectively against Tennessee. And Jeffrey Simmons and Autry and all those guys, and maybe they catch a break because Zach Cunningham might not play. I don't know. He's one of their key guys in the interior linebacker spot. But I'm telling you, and I screamed about this Thursday and Friday, right? If they abandon the run because well, there's too many runs where they're in 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 8 or 3rd and 7 or whatever. If they abandon the run and go mostly one-dimensional and ask Carson Wentz to throw and drop back 40-plus times, that is suicide. That is football suicide. They are not, this team is not, and no offensive line, but especially this one, is not built to be one-dimensional so Jeffrey Simmons and the boys can pin their ears back and pretty much know what's coming based on down and distance and based on game tempo and game situation, right? They have to be patient with the run. And if that means 2nd and 8, fine. You know what? I did some research. I don't know if you saw this. I actually, you know what? I didn't even put it out on Twitter. I said it on my radio show. 3rd and 1 through 9, Doug, I think it's like 37 times. Carson has been really, really good in terms of yards per attempt, accuracy, completion percentage, avoiding sacks, all of that. You know where they've been awful? It's 3rd and 10 plus, which is, guess what, where a lot of offenses have been awful. But you know what? The reason why I bring that up is 3rd and 1 through 9, I think it's been like 34, 35 times. 3rd and 10 plus and 4th down situations in which they've gone for it, which is 6 times, is 28. So the ratio is like 35 times 3rd and 1 through 9, where we've been really successful. And then 28 times 3rd and 10 plus, along with the 6 4th down opportunities, if that makes sense. There's too close in terms of the ratio. You're really good in the 3rd and 1 through 9. Please make it manageable on Sunday. Please, even if don't. I love Grant Paulson. Don't listen to Grant Paulson. Don't listen to Warren Sharp. Don't listen to any of these number nerds that say, no, you can't be in 2nd and 9, this, that. No. It's okay to be in 2nd and 9 because you know what's better than 2nd and 9? Or you know what's worse than 2nd and 9, Doug? 2nd and 10.
Yeah.
If you can't, or 2nd and 15, or 2nd and 17, or an intentional grounding, or a sack, or whatever the case might be. That's what's better. 2nd and 9 is way better than the alternative.
You're right. This game is all about the lines. I mean, I know that sounds ridiculous because they all are, but Justin Simmons, Jeffrey Simmons, they get after it. And we'll be lucky. It sounds like no Bud Dupree this week, which will be good. And we'll need that. Is it Nick Martin at center for us this week? The right side of the line currently is Martin, Charles, and I guess Lucas this week. Just like we had planned it before.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know if they made anything official, but that's what I expect. Martin, Charles, and Lucas. I think Tyler Larson's probably a week away from taking the full load at center. Okay. Remember, he and Carson have never worked together either. And remember, next week, actually, Larson's probably, at least in my opinion, maybe even, the Green Bay game, just from the standpoint of next week, there's going to be one real legitimate practice and a walkthrough, and that legitimate practice is probably going to be in shells and not at full speed anyway on Tuesday because of the shortened week. So I expect Nick Martin to start Sunday. And talk about Jeffrey Simmons. Boy, I mean, Jeffrey Simmons is going to have a field day when he looks at Sonny Charles at right guard, Nick Martin at center, who's better in pass protection than he is in run blocking, and Andrew Norwell. Because Andrew Norwell and Sadiq Charles on either side of Nick Martin are better at run blocking than they are at pass pro.
Right.
And that's going to be a problem because if I'm Tennessee, if I can't get home right away, and if for whatever reason Autry and Simmons are not just absolutely eating, I'm just double A gap pressuring those guys on the outside shoulders, if you will, of whoever is at center. I presume again Nick Martin. And trying to attack Carson Wentz that way. Because the one thing we know about Carson Wentz, number one, he doesn't like to get rid of the football. Number two, when you have to move him out, he's not your traditional, like fans want, move the pocket, right? Boot him, roll him. Guess what? Right. I was always told this about Robert. Same complaint was made. Robert did not maintain his fundamentals. Robert did not maintain his eyes down the field when he was on the run. He had a hard enough time in the pocket, doing that. He did not do that on the run. I'm not saying Carson Wentz doesn't do that, But I feel like if they thought he did that really well, then they would do more of that. And I'll give you a classic example. We have time, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
You have time?
I
I'll
got
give you
plenty
a
of time.
classic example. Remember the first intentional grounding last Sunday in Dallas, where Wentz is immediately pressured by Micah Parsons and he flushes to the right and almost like
Mhm.
takes the arc of a boot to the right? And he's running away, keeping his eyes up. Well, instead of getting rid of the football, he's looking to make a play, which is admirable. But Jahan Dotson, I think, is like 25 yards down the field. There's nobody to make a play to. So did he not recognize that? Did he not see that because he's on the run and because, oh my God, Micah Parsons is a heat-seeking missile trying to blow me up and chase me down? Some quarterbacks are not, believe it or not, some quarterbacks are not Steve Young, who they can just boot and be unbelievably accurate and great and reset their feet and flip their hips and get their body and their motion. So I believe that's part of the problem. And it's also part of the problem. One more I'll give you. I know it became a big deal on Thursday. I wondered about this, but I didn't know. I didn't think he had. But Scott Turner came out and said, look, he doesn't have the ability to change plays at the line of scrimmage. And I know some people on my radio show on Friday morning with Pete Medhurst on the Team 980, 9 to noon, by the way, Monday through Friday. People can check that out. Please do. Talk a lot of Commanders, too much Commanders.
Yes.
But a lot of people had a major problem, Doug, and they were like, well, why, what are we doing here? He's a 9-year veteran. Why are we not giving him this? Why are we not giving him this? Doug, I don't know if they think right now that he has full mastery of the system, the playbook, all the terminology, and that he can manage that along with managing pass rush and managing things through a Swiss cheese offensive line to then also be a coach on the field. I think maybe as he goes along, and if somehow he can stabilize the ship, he'll get more autonomy. But I don't have a problem with them saying, oh, hang on a second, Big Red. You got enough to deal with. We need to see this and this and this before we give you that. Now, a lot of people don't like that philosophy. Oh, he should have this. He should have that. He should have the ability to check out of his year. Yes. You know what? You know what they have the ability to do is if he can't check out of something at the line of scrimmage, he can slide the protection. Scott admitted that. He can slide the protection, or he can say, listen, there's a hot concept built into almost every route. We have to, whoever the hot is, has to realize, hey, they've got a double fire blitz from one side. Hey, they're going zero. The middle of the field is. We have to make a sight adjustment. Okay, if they're not going to let me change the play, we have to make a sight adjustment when we see something that we are, dramatically overmatched for.
Let's see here. It sounds like Logan Thomas won't go. Did they rush him back, or is this something different?
I don't know if they rushed him back. I mean, he played pretty damn well in the first game and even the second game.
He looks a little slow.
But he, I think maybe too much because they didn't have, Cole Turner wasn't ready because he didn't practice at all and he didn't play in the preseason. John Bates didn't practice and play, really much in August. They had Gandy Golden retire. Sammis Reyes never worked out. So on and so like Amani Rogers is a college quarterback turned tight end. They just didn't have anybody. So They probably asked him to do too much. And now, he's got a little soreness, whatever it is. I mean, maybe the colder weather certainly didn't help, but yeah, I mean, it looks like Brian Robinson will be active, but I think he'll play a very small role. I guess, they said Cole Turner is going to play. Now that he's had a couple of weeks of practice, you go that way along with Bates. And I think you'll see a lot of 12 personnel, and maybe you'll even see some 13 personnel in this game, maybe even using an extra offensive lineman instead of the third tight end.
I like the idea of the 13 personnel. I know we're running tight on time here. Let me throw a couple.
Yeah, because my battery is about to expire. I apologize.
Okay. That's right. Better chance that Carson Wentz plays here next year. You think he'll be back on the active roster starting for the Commanders next year?
Right now, no, but I would grant that we still have a long way to go, and I don't think he's getting benched anytime soon. I'd be surprised if he gets benched before week 7.
Will Deron? Yeah, because at some point they're going to have to escalate the trade value.
Yep.
Deron Payne, you think he'll be on the roster next year?
That's a great one. I think because of the franchise tag, yes.
Okay, right.
Meaning
And
they
I-
have
and
they
I
don't
like
have
that.
to do a long-term deal.
Yep, I totally
If
agree
one
with
doesn't,
you there.
yeah,
I didn't before the season started. I
Yeah.
think at least they'll have to do that.
with you on that.
Okay, and let's wrap here, Chris. If they win on Sunday, how? And give me a final score prediction.
Yeah, I have them losing 21-17, so I'll start with that.
I
If they
have
win
that.
on
I have 2017.
There you go. If they win on Sunday, they've got to force 3 turnovers, and Ryan Tannehill is susceptible, and they can't bounce off of Derrick Henry. I think Jamin Davis in this game is very, very key because he has the side to side speed and the athleticism and the frame to tackle Derrick Henry or at least knock him off his pace. Cole Holcomb doesn't have that. The safeties, I think, are a little bit too small. Jamin Davis, to me, is the key on defense because he's got the size, speed, and athleticism to at least neutralize Henry when he's not coming at you downhill, because a lot of times they run him around the edge and around the perimeter.
Chris, you're the best, man. Thank you so much. I could have done this for another half hour, but always glad to get you on the show.
Appreciate you, Doug.
No doubt. Thank you, bud.
Appreciate you, man. Was that okay?
Yep. Oh man, it was awesome.
So